Miss Andrews, are you okay?
Definitely not. I'm actress Valerie Allen, and I play Amy Andrews in the new film, The Empty Space.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
A violent attack leaves her without her boyfriend, her home, her sense of self. Amy, like so many of us, suffers from mental illness. As she tries to get her life back together, she's haunted by terrifying visions that may or may not be real. Empty Space goes beyond the slasher and takes you deep into the void. We hope you join us as our film premieres on streaming. We also hope that not only are you frightened, but you gain some insight into a serious problem that affects so many people, including the filmmakers.
I know how it sounds. What if it's real?
The Empty Space, a terrifying new vision from director Andrew Hara.
You're never getting an early episode again based on how you treated our Halloween episode. Yeah, welcome to Bomb Squad. I guess we're done with horror films since that episode. It didn't do that bad. It's doing okay. Go watch our Dominion review. It was a lot of fun, and it was the better review, as we were talking about off mic.
We don't blame you. We blame ourselves.
Yeah, well, I don't.
The audience.
We did quality work. It was on you guys this time.
No, he's kidding.
Yeah, I'm just a silly boy. Go check out the new shorts. Go check out The Empty Space. Like, hey, do some work, okay? You think this is easy? Us recording and talking, the thing we've been doing every day since we met? No, it's hard. And you're about to see how hard it is with the film that got picked today. It was a William pick.
I know. Swing and a miss, huh?
The last William pick of all time.
No way, man.
So William picked 2008's Bodies of Lies, which is good because Napoleon's coming out this week. How are they related? Because both were directed by Ridley Scott. This was written by William Monahan. Strike two, well. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Russell Crowe, and Mark Strong, and Oscar Isaac in his court-appointed Hispanic character playing a Muslim guy. Everyone's got to do it. It's just going to happen. Let's move past.
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong.
Also playing very much not his ethnicity.
Listen, Hollywood, you can't just give these guys... Like, it's so funny because they looked at Mark Strong, they're like, just give him a 10. And then they looked at Oscar Isaac and they're like, I think?
Do nothing.
I don't know.
Ponytail?
He talks normal,
Give him a man bun?
I like to think Ridley Scott was like reading something when Oscar Isaac did Ex Machina about Latinos, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Just like 10 years later, he still doesn't realize. Anyway, Josh, since William picked, he's got to tell us. He's gonna have to pay for his crimes. Why don't you tell us what this movie is about? Why don't you make us fill up this body of lies?
Wait, me or him?
You.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because after Josh finishes, I'm going to be like, William, why did you pick this?
Leo is...
In a less threatening way.
Great vibes going on so far, guys. Pre-show and now.
Leo is the one moral CIA agent, and his bosses keep being like, you're in the CIA. We kill people. That's all we do. We don't do anything useful. And he's like, but what if we make friends with them? They're like, stop it. Start killing them.
They're like, he's already dead. I killed him from here.
That happens about 5 times in this movie. And then it kind of ends.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It also like really brings home, like, if you're like, hey, I think being in the CIA is just looking at drone footage all day. Well,
well, they like, if you're in the military, you can get like Medal of Honor for like killing a bunch of people with a drone now, which is insane because it's like you're in an air-conditioned room looking at a laptop. That shouldn't get you any medals.
You should fucking have to be in an airplane at least. So, William, what made you pick Body of Lies?
Okay, so I feel like around this time period, there was like this movie and then The Green Zone and Syriana. They were like these like 3 weird war movies about the Middle East, and the aesthetic and kind of like the action in all of them is like not bad and kind of cool, but all the plots are just like so incomprehensible that it's like hard to know like what even like happened in that movie. And this movie has fucking William Monahan, The Departed, Ridley Scott, who is usually great, sometimes makes some stinkers. This was kind of during his stinker phase. We've also got Russell Crowe, Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Strong, Oscar Isaac, who I wasn't really a fan of at the time. But it's like this movie has so many elements that like should be good, and it's just it never actually amounts to anything. And I feel like a lot of movies around this time period were kind of doing that, where like they all kind of seemed cool and like I don't know, interesting. But I think what the problem was that like with like a good war movie like Apocalypse Now, like the mission, what they're trying to do. They're trying to find Colonel Kurtz, like Saving Private Ryan. They're trying to find Private Ryan. But I feel, and I guess I don't even know if this is why I wanted to pick this movie, but this is why I feel like I've never been able to finish it. Is because all these missions in these like Middle Eastern movies about the U.S. Iraq War are just like so incomprehensible.
Right.
And because like they're not really character based, they're like plot based, but the plots are so wild. And I don't know, watching it this time, I was like, there are parts of this movie that are great, and you can tell that it's like made by some like good filmmakers, but it just always falls short. And I kind of wanted to see. I've started this movie like 8 or 9 times, and I've never finished it until today. And I don't know. I just kind of want to see what you guys thought about it.
Just a glowing recommendation right there.
Well, that's why it's like a bomb, because it's like it should be so cool, but it's like
it does really have a great
great
cast and like director and.
Well, and I think one of the things about this is, I don't think we need to repeat the great cast for the 3rd time.
Right.
Is that like I think after and I'm glad William brought up Apocalypse Now, because I was thinking about Apocalypse Now at the same time. It's kind of like, they talk about how movies were like releasing movies about the war on terror this close. I mean, this is 2008. We're still like in the same decade of 9/11. And to be fair, I mean, it's 2023 and people still use 9/11 as justification or as examples.
Right.
It's still very much in our public conscience. And I think after 9/11, there was like this kind of need to, in a lot of ways, especially with war movies, especially with bad war movies, to be honest, there's this oversimplification of the problems. Like you see that like the Green Berets, that John Wayne movie, like the only one he filmed about Vietnam, where they like try to make it into this like Nazi, like, but it's like the Viet Cong were fighting for their homes. It's the same thing here, where these terrorists are like fighting for what they believe in, but it's like it's not in the same way where like they essentially just want to push America out. They don't necessarily want to take over like the Nazis did, and so it's just very hard to turn this into a black and white, even from a story perspective, because like this movie and so many of these movies, half the movie is like them trying to figure out who the fucking terrorist even is, like where he is, what he's doing, and so like
it's always some new guy they have to find.
Yeah, and if you look at, and it's always just some guy. And so if you look at it from like the point of view of like storytelling, it doesn't really work, because what's the connection between DiCaprio's character, Crowe's character, and this guy that they're hunting other than he's evil,
Right. And we don't know any of his ideologies. We don't know like where he came from.
They're very standard movie terrorists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
He has like one conversation with them at the end where he's just like, "You're against the Quran," and he's like, "Shut up, Leo." It's just very like, okay, there's not really anything here,
because you look at like Mission Impossible, and it works a little bit better because it's usually the Americans that are the bad guys in Mission Impossible, but also like they're doing crazy stunts. But here it's like they're trying to bring a level of realism, but then like the bad guys are oversimplified to a crazy degree, and I think like right now with what's fucking happening, like you see the ramifications of oversimplifying these kind of issues and like not looking at it from a bunch of different perspectives. And because of that, like it never comes together, and it kind of feels like you're always just kind of watching a movie that doesn't know what it's doing,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because it's like it's kind of trying to do like the fog of war, which I kind of get, because like every movie about
confusing.
Iraq is about the fog of war, because we didn't know what the fuck we're doing over there. Still don't really, you know, right?
Right.
But like it was almost trying to do like, well, let's do that, but let's also do the kind of straightforward. He has to catch the bad guy plot, but they don't really mesh, you know. And he also, we haven't even mentioned this, his like he has a love interest who's like
Oh
a
yeah,
like a
yeah. The nurse.
Palestinian nurse who's
Yeah,
like,
That
you
was
know,
like
supposed
legit the worst part.
supposed
I
to be
know.
like the innocence in this, like, oh, she's just like an innocent bystander, but it's very I don't. It's so weird where it's not really about that at all, and then suddenly it's extremely about that at the very end. They're
Right,
like, we have
right.
to bring her back from the climax. I don't know. It's strange. Also, can I say how strange it is for Leo to have brown hair and brown eyes in this?
Yeah, he looked fucking weird for no real reason.
A bad look, and Russell Crowe, like two very
No,
attractive men who
no,
looked
Russell Crowe
awful
looked
in
cool in
this.
this.
Yeah.
He looked like an
It's
accountant.
it's also funny that you see this movie and like I know there's a scene where Russell Crowe like basically tells him like, hey, we don't like who cares if the informant dies. The informant's job is to inform, and then we don't give a fuck after that. We just kill him. You know, and Russell Crowe's supposed to be like the most inhuman person out of everyone. But it's kind of funny how every Republican or politician on the right just talks like Russell Crowe now. Like, we gotta kill
Yeah.
these Mexicans, put barbed wire in the Rio, and it's like, it doesn't go
Yeah,
far enough, honestly.
it's almost just depressing because you're like, oh, this won't even be like couched in like language in like 10 years that they'll just straight up be screaming it, you know? Like
Right, right.
it's like a weird kind of that. I did think it was it's funny. There's a scene early on because kind of early it's Leo and Oscar Isaacs are like the team,
Yeah.
and they're kind of like going to like get intel or whatever, and Leo like goes up to like this like camp and pretends to be Arabic. And it's like, I'm sorry, Leo, you're the whitest man I've ever
I
seen.
know.
Oscar-
He's like,
and
I'm
then he-
from Baghdad. He literally says, I'm from Baghdad.
He tells Oscar
And they're like,
Isaac,
come on
Yeah.
over here. I don't know.
Oscar Isaac, like, oh, if they don't buy it, we're screwed. It's like they don't. They already.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it was like Team America. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, don't do that. And then 10 minutes later, you meet Mark Strong, and he's playing a Jordanian like government official,
Yeah, I
and he
was
just
gonna
looks
say.
like Mark Strong. It doesn't.
To be fair, they did give him black hair,
Right.
in like fucking Arab coats, kind of.
Yeah.
And there's like I don't. Yeah, it's also like you don't even really feel anything like any real tension from Russell Crowe's character and Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Like they argue, but they don't really like. Like there's
There's
a
no
scene
stakes for them at all.
Yeah, there's a scene at
Like,
the end
even-
where he quits and he's just kind of like,
All right.
Well, and there
buying
is
a
like this
vegetable.
like yeah, because he's like half the movie he's just talking to him on like his Bluetooth where he's like taking his kids to school, and they do kind of do like at the end when he finally like you see the terrorist leader, he's also just like in a room watching a camera, and it's like okay, it's like they're the two opposite ends of the same.
Yeah.
Like it's the same. Like they have no personal stake. They're just like sending out people to die, and it's like that's like an interesting idea that you didn't really. I don't know. It's like all
It
the
wasn't like
interesting
explored
stuff really
that
didn't
much.
go for it didn't go
Yeah.
for it.
are they?
Yeah.
And everything they did do is like just like so like on the nose. Like the first time you
Yeah.
see Russell Crowe, he's like in a bathrobe, like eating
Yeah.
breakfast, like chilling at his house, and it's just like I don't know. Like I wonder what it would have been like if I had watched this movie actually in 2008. Like what I would have thought. 'Cause I was also like very
Well, and
uninformed
it's-
about the world, but it's
Yeah.
like I don't know. Watching it now, it's just like all those. I don't know. I think I just want to watch this movie because it's like all those movies were coming out, and I thought that I was dumb for not understanding them. But
Oh, and then it turns out
they
they're
were
just dumb. Yeah.
They were just like so confusing because it's like just like what you said earlier. Like no one really knew what was going on in the Middle East, but like just such oversimplifications, especially Russell Crowe's character for sure. Like all the themes they were trying to hit on were just like so ham-fisted and like so like beating you over the head that it's like a
Yeah.
disappointment because it's like what a good movie about this time period is like I might be I don't know what you guys feel about it, but like Zero Dark 30, like great movie, like so many cool things going on, like The Hurt Locker, same time period, confusing plot, but it's all about his characters, so it really really works. But it's like you can't do plot in the Middle East and have no character. It just that's why those movies are kind of weird.
I think that's the thing is like if you look at Zero Dark 30 or The Hurt Locker, and even those movies, they're kind of like from one point of view, but they make that work. Like
Right.
with The Hurt Locker, you're really like you don't really ever see anyone. You just kind of see Jeremy Renner and like all the terrorists are kind of depicted without like really showing them. But that
Right.
works because you're like kind of following how this fucks up Jeremy Renner. Even
Right,
like
it's a PTSD movie, not a plot
yeah,
movie.
Yeah, and
even like
it's like it doesn't matter what bomb he's defusing in Hurt Locker, but in like this movie, Body of
Right.
Lies, it really matters to the plot. But it's like it doesn't hit,
but
you
it
know.
doesn't matter to the
Yeah.
characters, and
That's
we
what I'm
Right.
saying.
know enough
Yeah,
about the characters. And like,
yeah,
and then of course, like it's also that thing where like he's like a fucking idealistic CIA agent. His love
Yeah.
interest is a nurse from
I
fucking
know.
Palestine. It's like the
And he
most
goes to, like, eat-
obvious. Yeah.
The dinner scene with like there's a part where he goes to eat dinner with his like love interest and her sister. And her sister's like, "Well, you work for the US? Like, what's your opinion on the war?" And he's like, "I want it to be over too." And she's like, "Okay, we can eat dinner."
I know it's all
It's
it,
like, what?
especially like right now with what's happening. It's so funny to
I
be
know.
like they found common ground. It's like okay,
That
It's
was
also
not my
like
intention, by the way. I did
it's
not have Palestine and Jerusalem
yeah.
in mind
And
when
the
I
second
picked
I
this.
saw Palestinian refugee camp come up on screen, I was like, oh no, don't do
No!
this.
I did not realize that was a part of the movie because, as I said before, I had not seen it
let's not
all
get
the
into
way through.
current war crimes.
I know.
No, but like, yeah, like, and he's also his cover. He's like, oh, I'm just a foreign intelligence guy, and it's like, yeah, you're obviously a Fed. Like, what else would you
Yeah.
be when
Yeah.
that's your cover? What I really enjoy too, because really, the movie really is him. Like every time he's like, all right, we have this informant, and we just have to like get him across the border, and Russell Crowe will be like, nah, shoot him in the face, and
Right.
that keeps
Yeah.
happening. But then halfway through, Leo's like, well, what if we set up a fake terrorist cell to make the current terrorists like jealous? And
Yeah.
and that's a very funny because I almost wanted Russell Crowe to be like, oh, we don't need a fake one. We like fund a bunch of terrorist groups. We'll just get. We are the CIA. I mean, we do this shit all the
Yeah.
time.
Russell Crowe should have been like, "You found a real one in
Whoa.
Afghanistan? What the fuck?"
You've been wasting my fucking time.
I know.
Yeah.
It's also like it's also so funny for like the main plot of this, and like again, this is 2008. It is close to 9/11. He's not that close, so it's funny for them to be like, "Oh, let's make a fake terrorist." It's like, I mean, you guys in this movie, you guys are not in fucking. You're not in Saudi Arabia, so
Yeah.
you're already kind of finding fake terrorists thanks to the president at the time. And so I don't know. It's such, and I think that that's the thing is that like from the Vietnam War on, but like it's really just the Vietnam War because you had like Coppola and you had fucking Oliver Stone. You had these characters like these directors who were too big to fail in a way. Like Oliver Stone was on
Yeah.
so much cocaine, he did not give a fuck if he failed or not. Fucking Coppola was already having heart attacks like 20 a day during the filming of it. He didn't care.
Yeah.
So like you have these characters, and like the only way, because from the Vietnam War on, they are all our wars have been us going to someone's home and
Right.
trying to like take over, and so it's very hard to find the more. I mean, look at fucking Lucas. He turned the story of the Viet Cong into Star Wars, and we're not the good guys in that movie.
Yeah.
And so like at least in the Vietnam War, there was again, even Star Wars is like saying that if you're a big empire trying to take over everything, maybe
Yeah.
rethink what you're doing. But for some reason after 9/11, there's this like that patriotism that just kind of rang through the country. It kind of like sticks to it, so no one really ever wanted to criticize. Like Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 are probably the ones that criticize the wars the most. And again, that's
Yeah.
probably why they have the most quality to them.
Yeah. The most
But
nuanced.
it's very hard to like make a movie about the war on terror without taking a stance. And even if
Yeah.
like I don't think anyone's like 9/11 should have happened. Of course not. Like those were innocent lives. But I think our response was always going to be barbaric. Or maybe I'm just too fucking liberal for this movie. Like I just think
No,
like
yeah, it's
It's an
yeah.
action movie about actual things that are happening.
yeah, and
It's
about things that
crazy.
we're doing bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Leo
they, like-
didn't die at the end. Leo should have died on that table at the
Yeah,
end. I was like, what?
What's like so funny about that too is that at the end he's like, I'm gonna quit the CIA and just stay in the Middle East. It's like you're just gonna be murdered in like a week by someone else.
Yeah, dude.
Like all the shit you've been doing here. Like
I know. You should. It's yeah. Well, and it's. I mean, and this is a little teaser to our fucking one of the upcoming deep dives, which I haven't even started yet. But like, it's that thing where you have this idea that you can't be wrong if you're like the main
Hmm.
character, and like that doesn't work. It doesn't work
Right.
with something so complicated. With something
Yeah.
so like
Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's. I mean, like,
yeah.
what's the greatest war movie of all time? Apocalypse Now, right? And it's
Oh
about
yeah.
like how like, oh, this guy, the protagonist, is a piece of shit. Everyone's a piece
Yeah.
of shit,
Yeah.
and it like accepts that right away. Whereas this movie's like, nah, Leo's one of the
Sure.
good CIA guys, and it's
Right.
like
Yeah.
that
Right.
doesn't.
It's
And
just so
see,
trite.
it also like doesn't help that I think that I'm such a fucking pacifist that I like the only real war that I feel was justified was World War II, and like even then,
Yeah,
kind of
that's
took
true.
it
I
too
mean, that's the
far.
last. Yeah, because you're
It's just
not.
this, yeah. We've
It's
become such a huge global power that it's hard to like
Yeah.
watch us take over this town where we're killing people with drones, like not
I
even
know.
seeing their faces and be like, well, I mean, they had it coming. Like, it's,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we're just gonna bomb these like 20 blocks because two guys that are terrorists might be there. No, I get
yeah,
it. I mean, I think you're probably essentially correct in terms of America. I can't think of a single like moral war since World War II, which is why
right.
like the last like the only great like movies about heroes fighting bad guys in wars like Saving Private, like World War II
Yeah.
movies, Saving Private Ryan and all that, where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, the Nazis were that evil. They needed to be like fucking taken
Eradicated.
down. Where it's like, should we be in Korea? Like that's
Or
kind of,
anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, it's very disheartening. What I always thought was funny, because I mean, when you watch this movie, you almost have to kind of compare it to other war movies that are like kind of around the same time period. Because this is like what, 7 years or 6 years after the Iraq War started, where
Yeah.
everyone was already kind of like, oh, that wasn't such a good idea. And just like a while back, I watched Three Kings, which was in the
Oh yeah.
99, was also just a few years after the
It was the
Gulf
Gulf
War,
War. Yeah.
and it was oh god, that guy David O.
Joe
Russell,
Russell.
and
Yeah.
his moral message in Three Kings is, oh, we should have just stayed and occupied it, so the people would be doing so much better. And it's so
Yeah.
funny, like 9/11 happens 2 years later, proves him wrong in every single way. It's just
Right.
like, no, you can't make a war movie about a war that's current, that
I
like we
know.
haven't even figured out yet, and not have this muddled like message come out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that was so confusing as like a kid growing up because it's like that's like when it came to like any sort of war, like I feel like I got most of my information from like movies, like in a way.
Right. Right.
And so like
Yeah,
watching
like
all
the
these movies as a
cultural, yeah.
kid, yeah, it was like I always felt so confused because it was like Syriana has like George Clooney in it, and he's like a super leftist guy apparently, and
Yeah.
it's like Ridley Scott is somebody who I would see as like an artist, and I would assume that he wouldn't be so pro government, and so
Yeah.
it's so weird to see like this kind of disillusionment of kind of like big budget films are still big budget films. Like Leo is like the most environmental, well, supposedly. It's just like this weird facade that like crumbles when you watch these films because it's like if Leo would have died on that table at the end, like if he would have been lied to and like had his head cut off, like that would have been such a crazy fucking ending. That would have been so
Yeah.
cool.
And it should
They
have
could
ended
have,
with
they would have
like
never done that. They could have never gotten away with that.
it should
So
have
why
ended
even
with
make?
Russell Crowe like finding out and then just kind of like dropping his kids off and like not giving a shit. Like,
Yeah, going
Right,
to
which
McDonald's or something. Like
that would be authentic for sure.
yeah, that
Yeah,
would have been
it's like,
well, it would
awesome.
have had something to say, which is
Yeah,
what it doesn't have right now. And I think it's
no,
that thing where like and like using the movies as an example is you look at like The Matrix, which is 1999, Fight Club, and it's all about this like these people who are searching for any kind of community.
yeah,
And that was kind of the feel coming into the 2000s. Like we didn't really have any connections in that way. And I think like 9/11 happens and it connects America in a way that kind of like is super easy to get warped because we're connecting it to like the government, which you should never do. And
right,
so like I think that did it's kind of like coronavirus now. Like coronavirus broke
yeah,
so many people's brains. I think 9/11 did the same thing. Like even again, American Sniper, the guy watched what was happening on 9/11. He was like, I need to go kill people. And it's like, I
yeah,
don't know. It's just such a weird kind of like, what are we learning? What did America learn? And
yeah,
this is kind of like an
not
example of
much.
that.
Yeah,
but
Like,
like,
yeah.
No, yeah, it's. I mean, but you're right. But like, we were like teens at the time, so we didn't know how like fucked up this all was. We had grown up in the decadent '90s, where it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
everything's
know.
just kind of whatever. Like, the biggest concern is like, oh, you don't want to be a sellout. You know, that was the big thing in the '90s.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be a lame sellout. And then now it's
right.
like, oh, can we end these wars where people are just dying every day?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we didn't have real problems yet. It was.
Right.
It's very like, I don't know. We should have probably thought it was a bad sign when both liberals and Republicans just rallied around Bush. It's like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's not going to be used for anything good. But
Yeah, that's probably gonna be. Well, and if you look at like, you know, there's like there's Tears of the Sun, you know, with Bruce Willis, and
I remember that one. I
I
don't
don't
remember
think
what they did in that movie.
I've never seen it. Yeah, I've actually never seen Zero Dark 30.
it was
I did
just
see
kind
The
of
Hurt
these
Locker.
Oh, it's good.
tactical kind of movies. I think like we don't really see, um, you know, you don't really see like I think like you start to see the reaction to 9/11 in like The Dark Knight. I don't like how funny that is, but like or V for Vendetta, you know, where it starts to be like, have we given the government too much control?
Right.
Yeah.
And the problem with these movies is that not only are they not asking those questions, like they seem to have already asked that question, and the answer is no. We need to give them more control.
I know.
And
It's like they were
so
like funded by the government itself.
exactly,
It's how they feel.
like I thought I was watching a fucking Marvel movie without pro military in the studio.
I know.
Well, yeah, because
But they're
it's
so well made too. It's the fucked
that's
up part.
Yeah.
like kind of like every Michael Bay movie is where soldiers are always good guys, but there's like some kind of not soldier government guy who's the problem. And if only he was out of the way,
Right.
the good
Yeah.
soldiers could like do their jobs right and like,
Yeah.
Get
you know,
Cypher out
win
of
the
there.
war. Yeah.
I think around like 2006, like kind of going through movies, is that like, that's when you get like Casino Royale or The Departed. You get like these kind of movies that are starting to question how much reach the government has. Like even Casino Royale, I mean, it starts with fucking James Bond not even trusting the people that he's working for, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And you know, you have Children of Men, of course, which is like very kind of almost an answer to that cynicism and like the backlash and the backlash of the backlash. And so like you have these movies that are touching it, but then you still had these movies, and I think it's that kind of thing where like again, when you're watching like fucking John Wayne, you know, chasing people down, and it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, kill those Nazis, you know, it's cool, but when you're like when they're blowing up buildings, but then it's like, well, yeah, but
Who was in
that's
those buildings?
like we just saw this market full of people,
Yeah.
and they're not all
Yeah.
terrorists. Like they're just people shopping, you know, and you're blowing them
Yeah.
up, and or like even the fact that the girl that Leonardo DiCaprio is just talking to gets kidnapped because the fact that they're talking together. It's like even from this, like at the end when Leonardo DiCaprio like he's like, I'm gonna go spend time with her. It's like,
Don't
why
do
would
it,
you
man.
want to spend time with her? She almost got
Yeah,
her fucking
go
head
home.
chopped off.
Although, you know, it's funny because we didn't cover this. And it's almost like, God, this almost would have been a better, if not particularly smart war movie. They kind of do this like, oh, him and Mark, like, because Mark Strong's like this Jordanian, like, high up government official, and him and Leo are like friends. And they kind of have this like frenemy situation going on. And then at the end,
Yeah.
you find out that like Mark Strong fake kidnapped the girl to get
Yeah.
Leo to go to the,
Oh,
and it's
right.
very like, what a now you see me ass twist for like
And
your
not only
war
I
on
know.
terror movie.
Yeah,
You know?
like when the government like busted into him, like getting it like executed on the table, it was just like, who the fuck is this? And then Mark Strong walks in, you're just like,
Right. That's such
I
a like
lied too. Don't lie
that's
to me, but I lie.
that's like
Just
a Bond
fuck
movie, but
off,
like
man.
Roger Moore Bond.
And like, isn't it implied
Yeah.
that Russell Crowe also helped fake it?
What, say
No,
that
no,
again?
Russell Crowe had no idea. He was just like, "Oh, he got
No, it was
kidnapped.
all
Sorry."
Jordanian.
Okay,
Yeah,
here's the thing: why is Russell Crowe in this movie? He like does nothing.
I know. He's fucking
He's
Walter
so
Sobchak.
pointless.
Like
Well,
Yeah.
the whole
he's
time.
like the conceit of like Ridley Scott being like, yes, of course the government's evil. It's all Russell Crowe, and that's like you almost needed the movie to be about him if you wanted to really condemn the
Yeah.
government. I don't know. There's so many
About one
directions
of
this
them.
movie could have gone and didn't.
Yeah.
You know?
It was just so bland. It was like they'd use like these like spy tactic shit, which I mean they could have just changed the plot and made like a cool spy movie, but to make it too real, it it cheapens everything, and
Me.
it
And
just
I
makes
think
it
that
like almost not even worth a watch.
yeah,
Although this is a fun discussion.
I
Yeah.
do think that that's the problem is that it's not it's not silly. It wants to be too realistic to have fun as a spy movie,
Yeah,
but it's not realistic enough for me to take it seriously as to be like, oh, that's what it was like down there. Because
to
and
say
it's funny
anything.
because he directed fucking Black Hawk Down, which
I
is
know,
like
which is
this is what it
great.
would be like down
Yeah,
there.
character driven. We know the plot. Don't die.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
like
like, oh
simple.
yeah, if you're down there and you're an American soldier and your fucking helicopter crash, it would be the scariest shit ever because you're surrounded by everyone who wants to kill you.
Right.
And like that's interesting, and they found a good way to like make it relatable because we're following these guys. You don't even really have time to understand the politics because you just
Right.
don't want anyone to die, and that's relatable.
Yeah.
Where in this one, they're kind of like asking you to know the politics, but they're not.
I know.
It's not good.
And like
Yeah.
also in Black Hawk Down 2, to go back to that, because I was thinking about that movie as well. I actually forgotten that was Ridley Scott until just now. But like Josh Hartnett is like the defector. Like he's not the defector. He's like a great guy, but he's the one who's like, I respect the Ethiopians and I understand their plight, and like I really want to help them. And like he's not, he's the Michael Bay defective soldier, but he's like actually seen in a great light in the movie. And like what a well-rounded sort of like, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I want to say maybe it was kind of a nuanced view on like why we're here in this situation.
Yeah,
And
like
so like
kind
why
of
not bring that
acknowledging it.
to what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Whereas this movie only really acknowledges it when Leo's like, "Hey, the real Quran is good, but you terrorists, you're not good." It's
Well,
like,
and
thanks.
Fucked up.
it also does the thing where it's like Leo's pretty worried about his dudes, like Oscar Isaac, and then they get killed and shit. But it, like, who cares if he's worried? He lets them get killed every single time.
Right.
Like, it
He never
doesn't-
stands up for him.
Yeah,
He doesn't
I
get
don't-
killed himself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I don't feel like your words are just nothing. They're just words
Right.
because you're letting these guys.
He was
die.
like, Oscar Isaacs, I see what bad haircut you have for this movie. I'm just I'm letting them put you out of your misery. It's the
Also,
the only bad look Oscar Isaacs has ever had in his life.
Oscar Isaac was
He looked
like
fine.
Oscar Isaac's like name should have been Human Shield because like all his lines were like, "Oh, I gotta get home to my wife. Better not
Yeah.
get blown
You
up
saw
in a
how
helicopter."
smiley she was.
Yeah.
This is a great.
She was happy.
Yeah,
My favorite thing about being alive is being alive.
I should emphasize Oscar Isaacs is a very handsome man. You can't make him ugly, but they like tried in this movie. Same with Leo.
All right, bro, bring it back, buddy.
No, we're gonna talk about how much we want to sleep with him now.
Let's
this
calm down.
That's what the podcast is about.
Um,
It is weird though, because I think this was even before like Sucker Punch. So it's like, oh, this is like literally his like first like baby feature film role, I think.
Yeah, when
So-
I saw the first of this like a long time ago, I had no idea who he was at all for sure.
Yeah, my notes just say Oscar Isaac and then Mark Strong later.
Yeah, this movie takes a turn as soon as whenever Oscar Isaac dies. That's when you know things will not be okay.
Yeah, well, and,
It's
like
true.
I was watching this movie and halfway through I was like, "What? Oh yeah, we're recruiting this for the podcast."
Yeah.
I kept with it, but it was a struggle. I don't know. There's just
There's
so
just
many
a lot
just
going on, but like you realize very
Yeah.
quickly that it doesn't really matter if you know what's happening. You know?
Right. I zoned out in major chunks again. I mean, I definitely finished it for the podcast, but I've been trying to watch this movie since it came out, and I've probably tried to watch it 5 times, and not once have I ever made it through. And I thought it was just confusing, but now I think that it's kind of like meeting your heroes in a way. It's like, I don't know, like Blade Runner is like such like this cool like environmental aspect on like what's going to happen in the future. Like it seems like very, this like cool, well-rounded worldview. And then he makes this 9/11 movie, and it's just bullshit. And I think that was like a
Right.
really disappointing time in like film where it's like these action movies were coming out, but they were just action movies and they weren't teaching you anything. And it was like, that's like not okay to do. That's like something that's just, I don't
But
know.
like
That's-
if you
that's,
were
like, not
making
great.
if it was like as cool as like Die Hard, then that'd be fine. But it's so like grounded in its like geopolitics
Right.
bullshit that you're just like,
Well,
I
and
can't connect to this. You know?
It's
Yeah,
funny
I
because
don't
if you
even know
want
what
to
all this
see
is.
a movie about this that is as cool as fucking Die Hard, just watch fucking Avatar. It's the same thing. And people always say that like Avatar is like pretty generic, but Avatar is directly coming from Cameron's ideals about 9/11. It's like they infiltrate the fucking Navi, and then like he realizes what they're actually fighting for and stuff. And so it is
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like this. If you're going to be a big military might taking on the underdogs, like it's very you have to understand what you're doing, even if they're attacking you.
Yeah. And you
And
got to make it in 3D animation. You can't
yeah,
have
and you
real
have
life
to make
people.
it super. You have to make the enemy super hot for no
Can you
reason.
say it's
You
it's
can't
so
make
weird?
people run mad.
Like this movie did remind me because what like in 2021, Ridley Scott released like The Last Duel and House of Gucci back to back, two movies that I did not think were going to be that good, and they were both great. I was like, oh yeah, Ridley Scott's like great, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot sometimes he just puts out some random movie like this. He's made so many
I
that
will say
Yeah.
that
you know.
One of the things I do like about Ridley Scott is the fact that he takes risks. Like, he'll make a fucking, I think last year my two favorite movies were or whenever it came out, it was The Last Duel and House of Gucci. Like,
Oh, yeah. The
I
Last
saw
Duel
The
was
Last
great.
Duel and I watched House of Gucci, and I was like, I watched The Last Duel and I was like, damn, he still got it. And I watched House of Gucci and I was like, damn, this is the best movie ever made because it's so ridiculous. But
I
then
never
I
saw
like watched.
Gucci.
It's
Oh, you should
good.
watch it. Bro.
Yeah, I
We'll
should watch
cover
it.
eventually.
I loved Last Duel, but I never saw Gucci.
Well, don't go in with the same expectations because they're very different.
Yeah,
It's
Last Duel
it's-
is like a real movie.
if it House of Gucci, you're like surprised it's good based
But
on
then,
like everything,
It also has like I cannot tell you how bored I was in the theater watching The Counselor. It was like, and I don't even
Oh,
like Cormac
yeah, it was
McCarthy,
so
but like
bad.
it's such a bad movie. But I kind of like that he's still like even at this age, like I'm not gonna lie, that movie the Napoleon, it looks bad. To me, it looks bad.
yeah,
But
I'm whatever about
I
it.
like that he's
Yeah.
still like because you see kind of some of these directors and they're like playing it safe even now, even the
Mhm.
young ones, where it's like you see Scorsese and Ridley Scott and they're still swinging for the fences for no real
Yeah.
reason, just
That
to
is
do
cool,
it.
yeah.
That's just who they are.
And I think that that's cool, and I think eventually we're going to cover a lot of his movies, especially Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut.
And that's also written by William Monahan, and also a
Which is
movie
awesome.
about Middle East versus Western.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but just
I will say that I feel like Ridley Scott is kind of like he has similarities with Michael Mann, where whenever
Yeah,
they release a
I think so.
director's cut of their movie, it's almost 1,000 times better.
Totally. Yeah.
the
Even
point where,
visually,
like-
there's like a lot of similarities.
Yeah, when Michael Mann came out with Black Hat, I like was looking, and then I found out that they were going to release a director's cut down the line, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to wait for that. Like, I'm
Right.
not going to fucking watch the regular movie.
We know how they treat this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's kind of cool that he is taking he didn't. I mean, this movie's safe, but he at least went into making one.
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, I'll give it a shot. It's like when we did what that terrible Brian De Palma sci-fi movie we covered.
Oh yeah, Mission to Mars.
Yeah, that's the one where it's like,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
he tried something. So
Exactly.
you do have to give him props.
Look, I'm trying to pick bombs for this podcast, okay?
I know, William
You
Goldman
can't
actually-
say that I don't deliver. And they bring great conversations. I dropped the actual fucking bombs, yo.
William
Don't complain.
He drops real bombs, and we're like, oh, this week we're talking about Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I saw a Body of Lies on HBO, and I was like, that
Okay.
movie is weird as hell.
The
And I've never been able to
first-
like it, and I'm gonna fucking pick that
The
shit.
first movie you recommended was Twister, which is like the highest grossing movie of the year.
Currently getting a reboot.
It was a film school bomb. It was a film school bomb where I think I was made fun of for it one time, and I was like, I guess people hate that movie, but it's
Yeah, you're
by
like
jackasses at MSU.
the Letterboxd psychopaths gave this a 3 stars. So
I'm making up for it with Lost Stars.
That's right.
this isn't. God, no, it's not. I mean, God, Ridley Scott's a great director. I don't want to denigrate him. I was
I know.
surprised
He's so
looking
much-
over
he's
his
as good as he has
filmography
in life.
earlier. I was like, oh man, he directed The Martian. That movie just
Oh,
completely out of my mind the second I finished watching it.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching it, but it was just okay.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
very
it could have
like,
been a made for
oh,
TV show,
that movie happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I wouldn't recommend this one. I would recommend checking out
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's other work.
Maybe not The
And check out
Counselor,
this. I
but
mean,
that's a
it's-
great one to do for the Bomb Squad, hands down. That would be a great episode.
I don't think it would be.
Cormac McCarthy versus
know,
Ridley Scott, and why they don't work. That's great.
Technically,
were
the
terrible
Blade
together.
Runner was a bomb, so that's gonna be
right.
my like
Financially,
fake
for
pick.
sure.
And I will
Yeah.
say that the acting's great. Of course, you get Leo, you get Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Everyone's
The action
doing a
is
good
awesome,
job.
which is
Yeah,
kind of like
even the girl
not-
whose
it's
name I
against the
don't
point.
know. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a good one. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I would recommend Ridley Scott, and I would recommend directors. For all you directors who listen, take chances on shit.
I would
That's
recommend
how I
Leo in
made
other things.
The Empty Space. It was a chance. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even want to.
I would say watch it if you go into it with an open mind, but not too open. If you hate the government, watch this movie and drink some
Be
beers.
annoyed, yeah.
But no, okay, even like a super pro, I love that we bomb the Middle East Republican, I don't think would like love this movie. They just feel like,
Yeah.
like I don't think it's necessarily exciting enough. It's almost not racist enough for them. It's just kind of like right, like it's like lukewarm, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So
like-
it's really it's a solid 5 out of 10.
I don't think
Because
we'll
they
ever
didn't want it to
cover
bomb.
this. So I'll just bring it up now. You should watch not Desert Sniper. You should watch American Sniper, the sequel to Desert Sniper. I do think I don't know if Clint Eastwood did this inadvertently or he did it on purpose. He is a very smart guy, but he's also like a super hardcore Republican, so who knows? That movie kind of deals with like what happens when you follow the lie and don't like use your brain in any way, and how like even if you were the Republican who was rah rah rah, I'm gonna sign up to kill, terrorists the second they hit the towers. You didn't come out of that war clean, and maybe that's kind of like the point of why this movie doesn't work. Is like even in American Sniper, like Clint Eastwood managed to find the most fucking American, quote unquote, American guy ever, and it's still like just being in that war was so horrific that it like completely broke this dude. And so I think that's like a good, and that's like kind of why that movie works better than this movie, because it's like, how do you watch just like children be terrorists or children get killed and like not come away broken,
Right. Leo's
so
buying vegetables at the end. He's literally just at a market.
I
chilling.
know. He's so happy.
It's okay. Yeah, it's
He's
fucked
about to
up.
go get some ass.
It's just funny, yeah, because you think of that parallel to the Hurt Locker, where he literally has a breakdown in a market because he cannot deal with
right
having like 30 fucking cereal boxes in front of him. Now I say watch Stop Loss. You really want to get into the shit, watch MTV's Stop Loss.
I don't think I ever saw that one. I remember when that came out, but I never saw it.
One.
You and me
Ryan
saw it in
Phillippe?
theaters, Andrew.
I know, but like it's not. I feel like you should have to rest on this because nobody knows what Stop Loss is.
It's really bad.
It was like a big deal when it came out, kind of.
Anyways, it does lean into funny bad though, at least, which is.
I don't remember.
On it a little bit. It's like Ryan Phillippe, Channing Tatum, and
Jessica Biel.
yeah, and the Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like the really fucked up PTSD one. Yeah, it's
watch
like very
and
funny.
Then watch G.I. Joe and imagine they're the same character.
But I do feel like Stop Loss has more to say about the war than this movie did. I don't think it's smart.
G.I. Joe had more to say about the war than this movie did.
It may have. It honestly may have.
It's so funny that we covered G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Which is
Body of Lies was a confusing commercial for the war on terror.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it kind of boils down to.
Yeah, I dragged William to see G.I. Joe in theaters, and he did not have a good time.
Well, I was probably a little high. I didn't have the worst time.
Yeah,
Popcorn was probably
getting high and how that ruins your enjoyment of films.
It was fine. If I wrecked on it, I was probably just wrecking on you.
I feel like this one was a fun one because we really talked about some themes that we had to talk about because there was nothing else to talk about. And also, we kind of covered a lot of stuff and how people our age dealt with 9/11.
I know. I think this has been a confusing thing for a lot of us for our whole lives. Like these action movies didn't help us.
And I think it wasn't until Corona that I realized oh yeah, most of the time nobody knows what's happening and we're all just kind of has to keep living because that's no option.
Don't trust anyone.
And so 9/11 was the first one, but I didn't notice. I mean, I was too young to know that was happening.
Yeah, you go into high school.
It seemed normal. Yeah. Well, like normal, but it seemed like what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'll come back next week. We're going to do something a little bit funner. Or not. I don't know. We haven't picked it. And so it's going to be called Salo. But yeah, we'll see.
I will not watch Solo.
Yeah, how many days? How many Sodoms?
It's gonna be our 100 because it's 100 days of sodomy. The 100 episode special.
Absolutely.
Can't even do a fucking thumbnail.
I'm the Marquis.
I'll just do the Mr. Beast thumbnail. Where I'm like,
Hey.
anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Go check out the shorts and the movies. Also, this comes out the second week of November because we had to show that Prestige one. But still, you get the point. We recorded this earlier.